to, are we live audio? Great. I would now like to call to order the September 21st, 2022 meeting of the State Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bess. Present. Ms. DeLosa.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Durham.
Present.
Dr. Ernest.
Present.
Mr. Gastineau.
Here.
Ms. Hamill.
Here.
Mr. Mapes.
Here.
Ms. Moat.
Here.
Ms. Renschler.
Here.
Mr. Watts.
Here.
Dr. Jenner.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Great. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. It's right behind us here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the August 10th, 2022 meeting?
So moved. Second.
The motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So first and foremost, those of you here present today, thank you for making the trip to the Farm Bureau building here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. I don't know that we've ever had a board meeting here, and we are here today as a State Board of Ed, thanks to Junior Achievement of Central Indiana, who hosts almost 12,000 eighth grade students it felt like about a mile from here, but it's a little bit of ways away from the building where we're sitting. But yeah, about 12,000 eighth grade students who are exploring with various industry and business leaders and exploring careers. So many people have picked up on the discussions that we've had as a board around the importance of making sure our students have access to explore careers. And so when JA reached out about hosting the meeting here, we were thrilled to do that. And so thank you to JA, even for, they got this room for us and set up the tables, chairs, everything. So we sure appreciate them. And thank you for showcasing that work this morning. I'm sure others might respond to that as well, some of the things you saw. A few major announcements since we last met as a board. On August 18th, we announced the state's largest ever investment in literacy. An enormous thank you to Lilly Endowment. It's a combined up to $111 million investment to support a goal that I know is we as a board have talked about, the importance of making sure our children can read. And so our goal is 95% of our students pass on iRead 3 by 2027. And this $111 million investment will really help support our schools and our teachers. Really focus in on the science of reading strategies. That following week, on August 24th, we announced the launch of Indiana Learns. Thank you to the Principals Association who joined that press conference, as well as several superintendents, Leanne Kwiatkowski from Muncie, Matt Prosecki from Decatur Township, who hosted, and Alicia Johnson from Indianapolis Public Schools, who came together to announce with Mind Trust a micro grant program for parents and families who, if without this money, may not be able to afford high dosage tutoring for their child. It targets 4th and 5th grade students. Many have asked, well, why just 4th and 5th grade students? Great question. We absolutely are seeing an impact with those students because many of them were in the primary grades during COVID, as well as this for Indiana, and it was mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, this for Indiana is a big bet for us. We're trying it. We want to learn from it. So we are hopeful that we have more students sign up than we can even fund today, so that we can then potentially ask the General Assembly for future support. So again, really excited about that opportunity. And I should also add that platform goes live for schools October 1st and parents. At the end of August, that following week, BJ Watts joined me for a Southern Indiana, Southwestern Indiana tour of almost 20 schools in Posey County, Vanderburgh, Warwick County, Spencer County, Perry County, Crawford, and Harrison counties. We saw some really cool work, and maybe in board comments, BJ, I'd ask you to highlight one thing that you really saw that was cool. We also, that following week, hosted our first ever Education Oscars, which is also known as the Educational Excellence Award Gala. Several of our board members were in attendance. We had educators from across the state who were invited to attend. We had traditional public schools win. We had non-pub schools, charter schools, and it was purely based on just a data pull from the state around not only closing gaps, for example, in some of our learning, but it was also a work-based learning and some other areas that we as a board have talked about quite a bit. And then today, finally, we will hear from Jason Callahan about Indiana GPS. On that note, I would invite any other statements. I purposely didn't hit a lot on the JA event that we just saw, so if there's any reflection there, as well as BJ from the tours of Southern Indiana.
For me, one of my favorite things.
Is his
Am I
mic live?
Okay.
You might have to leave. Okay.
Was having one of my former students that ran track for me, seeing her in her classroom. That was pretty special for me. But I felt like the thing that I enjoyed showcasing the most was probably our partnership with Toyota at Ball State High School 4T, to where Toyota is actually providing the teachers, so to speak, that come in and teach the curriculum the Toyota way through CTE courses that we offer as well in the high school. Toyota funded the entire revamping of the room, so those public partnerships like that are exciting and honestly allow us to do things that we couldn't do as a school corporation without their help. I mean, because going out and finding those instructors, if you've tried to hire CTE instructors lately, it's a difficult thing to do. But yeah, having that partner come into our buildings and teach 2 days a week is a commitment on their part and something we're kind of proud of.
And if I remember correctly, there were 2 Toyota employees
That come 3 days a week.
who were working with students. So
No, they're not there all day. They're there for about half a day, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're there with seniors 2 days a week and juniors 1 day a week.
Yeah, it's a good example. What other takeaways did you have from today, or anything else you'd like to add?
I'd just like to kind of get a take from my fellow board members of, we're going to have a presentation on the GPS today. What your thoughts are as we look at the GPS and look at school accountability. Since we've started this process, it's probably the thing that weighs most on my mind about how do we measure schools. And we've seen a lot of data points with the GPS, but academic performance and academic growth is something that I hope we don't lose track of as we go through the process. And once we get some of this done as a board, that's probably our next biggest lift that we have, is what school accountability look like. And probably the biggest question I get from my own principals is, when are we going to know where are we heading and what are we supposed to be doing in our schools? So I just like to hear from board members their take on accountability.
Yeah, I think today's a prime time to have that discussion. Thank you.
I'll weigh in, and again, Dr. Jenner, we talked some, because I think as we look at GPS, especially as it starts to roll out, one of the things we want to make sure, because you and your staff have all been really clear from the beginning that GPS is not the accountability system. And I think the sooner we can have, start some discussions around accountability, we avoid the opportunity for people to kind of conflate the two and say, well, guys, they're rolling out GPS, we haven't heard about accountability, so this must be the new system. And I think if we can start that discussion whenever it's appropriate, but hopefully sooner than later, we can avoid that, where people know we're looking at accountability as a separate issue while we roll out GPS as this really, really cool, informative system that we have. And as we talked a few weeks ago, I think I personally, I know that there are some really innovative things that states are doing around the country around accountability. I think having someone come in and help educate us on that would be really helpful. I think that's a good role, whether it's a professional development session, however we want to phrase that, for us to get. I know I've seen examples, but I don't know enough about it as like to go, oh yeah, we should use what Kentucky's doing, or we should use what New Hampshire's doing, or we should, like, there's great examples, but having someone come in and kind of lay that out for us could be helpful.
We just had a landscape review of all 50 states. And so there are definitely some takeaways we could do at a future presentation that might be helpful. So good thoughts. Anyone else?
The other thing, just out of curiosity, Byron was probably on the board when accountability's been set before, and BJ, okay, Katie. I wasn't sure how many of us have been through the process.
For me, I know that the dashboard's not accountability, but I do feel like the two have to correlate. Because what teachers have begged for decades is give us more data points, give us more data points. That's what the dashboard does. So while it is not accountability, and I know that and I say that, I do feel like those two need to hold hands at least. Because when we're trying to, it's very difficult to paint a picture of what's going on in a school building to give a grade to it. Like that's a hard thing to do. So I feel like the dashboard's done a very good job of capturing a lot of that. So how we can mesh those two, I feel like I feel like that should be our launching point, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Agreed.
Something, pardon me, that occurs to me is we know that if we were to issue grades with the existing accountability system, it would be the first time in 5-ish years that has been done. That feels to me a very absurd outcome for us to do that. So I think that puts additional emphasis on the need to have an alternative. I like that the GPS sets vision clearly, and it clearly articulates what we care about from an outcome perspective with regard to proficiency, and then the key characteristics that probably are more important for students as they enter the workforce and post-secondary. That feels right. We're going to learn a lot as that is shared with consumers, parents, teachers, others. I also am wondering about the relationship. So if that's what we care about, that's the vision, that's where we're going, this is the deliverable, right? Having these students who are very successful with these characteristics, then what are the inputs that matter most? It feels like at the high school level, we'll have to crack open diploma and consider those different types. And that feels like a prerequisite step to accountability, because we have to make sure that the inputs that we are, the pathway we're saying to students, achieve these things and then these outcomes will follow. Is that true? And is that key input functioning how it should? So it feels like we need to do diploma type before we then ladder up to, so what should we measure? I agree, Scott, with your point that that's urgent. And this will be my second go. I think BJ's third, possibly fourth. So, I totally affirm my colleagues' sentiments, and I would encourage us to start with diploma type, and then move on to what should we be measuring, or do it all in parallel, which is messier but faster. So curious how others react to those observations.
That to me also, I feel like the pathways work is some of the best work some of the work I'm most proud of that I've done in my tenure here. But I feel like there's loopholes probably, I see Byron said, I mean, he led that work nodding that that's probably also something. And again, I don't know if that's in statute or policy. I don't know how we would address it. But I do feel like if shoring up diplomas and pathways is probably a prereq to accountability.
And I agree. But there is a point, we may have talked at a meeting prior, like, we do have to have some sense of the end. Like, as we look at diplomas, as we look at pathways, if we may not have the accountability lined out, we may at least need to have a general sense of what that's going to look like while we do that. Because I do agree that right now we have a misalignment, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just things have evolved, right? Pathways came about, which I agree is a really good piece of work. The accountability system's kind of been there. Then we have diploma types, which predate that. And right now, people are making it work, but I don't know that anybody would jump up and down and say, man, we have the best system around. So I think it's stepping back and looking at how do all these things interrelate, knowing that each one of them individually is a really heavy lift with a lot of repercussions. But I think if we have a general sense of how they connect and how they relate, then we can start picking off the pieces as we go. And I do agree that starting with the diploma, starting with the pathways, getting those ironed out, but having a general sense of what accountability is going to look like helps shape that discussion.
So I've talked to all of the board members, I think, about this exact conversation on a one-on-one to get thoughts. And I don't think there's anyone on the board, to be clear to the public, who does not believe we need a refresh in accountability. How far we go, yet to be determined, and we'll get stakeholder feedback as we always have. We've also heard that same sentiment. I don't know if I've heard it from every single one of you, but I would say the majority who have an interest in looking at diplomas as well. So what we have Chad Ranney doing, who I can't look at you without imagining you hiking across the parking lot about 10 minutes ago. Really glad you're here, Chad, because I'm calling you. We have asked our general counsel, of course, of the Department and State Board of Ed, to start reviewing what is law, what is statute, what is administrative policy, so that we as a board have the most flexibility as we open this discussion. Chad, I don't know if you want to say anything on that today, or if you want to wait until further discussion. The one thing I will ask you to say is, you pointed out, we often say, and I just do this all the time, accountability, accountability, accountability. And you talked about how Indiana law, the word accountability is really not in there.
So statute uses phrases like measures of school improvement, measures of school success, measures of school performance, not necessarily accountability. And so I think as we talk about this next iteration of whatever this system is, it's probably smart to move towards a different direction in terms of how we talk about it as well. So just a suggestion. But. And then
on that note, for years we've also had a discussion: do we marry state and federal? And I think now more than ever as a board, we've really leaned into state design and us leading that, owning that. So there will be some federal work that we'll do, but really thinking how, to several of your points today, how do we want this to look? How should this look for the future of Indiana to really get the best outcomes for students?
I love the idea of rebranding. That's important, because there are some negative connotations to things that have happened and things that we've done. So I feel like that rebranding, as far as it's in the gotcha system. Let's figure out where we need to improve and how we can help. So I do like the idea of rebranding that term.
Any other discussion?
Katie, if I could, I would, to your point, Pat, and that was a good one, and to all the others, because we've actually even done in this process a pause, if you will, in accountability from the standpoint we started to work on it, and then we said, hey, it does need to be aligned to grad pathways too, right? But I think the other thing, so I just had the opportunity to finish up some work with on an Aspen Institute work group for Opportunity to Learn. And I thought it was interesting as we were talking here, and that was all around principles, a framework of principles, not a prescription, but principles, right? Which goes to Pat's point. We don't want to forget any piece of it, right? And so one of our principles was states must strategically collect and use data to illuminate to the extent to which schools are providing all students with opportunities to learn. And I love the way that came out because it's illuminate, and it's also not picking out one area, the academic piece, all of it all fits, right? And then the other thing that I wanted to add to this discussion, because we've talked diplomas, we've talked grad pathways, we've talked the accountability piece, right? I think the other work that's going on right now that's going to fit into this, and I still say the most important work being done right now is on the standards. How do we get those down to the essential ones that we need? That's the way we raise the bar, right? We can't have, as teachers, us teaching this unachievable set of standards. What are those essentials? And so I think that fits. I couldn't let this conversation go without adding that back in, because that gets back to your achievement piece to that work. So I think that's important work.
And not to acknowledge another elephant in the room, but anytime you look at standards revision, that also impacts potential assessment innovation. And so as a state, we've talked about for several years, how might we get the best data for kids, but not just have to wait for a summative assessment at the end. What could it look like? Is it an interim? What does it look like? So that's another, to Scott, your earlier point on the landscape of our country. There's some interesting innovations happening there, but I'll tell you all, we'll look at some of the other states, but in some cases, Indiana is going to need us lead on some things, just in order to keep pushing. We already are, and I think we'll see that we're going to continue to need to push on that.
I'd love to see us lead on a through-the-year assessment in grades 3 through 8, so we can help kids earlier than the autopsy we have currently with iLearn at the end of the year. Anything we can do through the year. I'll throw in my formative assessment quote for you, Katie, just so you'll feel good.
I literally was like, he didn't say formative assessment. He did not say that. I was noting it. I'm going to scratch it out. Go ahead.
Monthly, month by month, formative assessment, looking at language arts and math as our success.
Yes.
And I realize that we don't use the state grant dollars to purchase it, but
Yeah.
we need something like that to help our kids.
Yeah.
And we need the state to come with an assessment that is through the year, so as kids move, and we talked about transiency the last board meeting, something follows them so we know where to start with them when they come into our school districts.
Yeah.
We just don't have that right now.
Yeah.
And that'll put all those pieces together. If your focus on literacy and the pathways, it will just connect all of it in the end. It's just think about how many things we've mentioned. It's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work.
It is.
And a lot of good, smart people around
Yeah.
this table, as well as in your department,
Yeah.
can help think through all of
Absolutely.
this and help our students. That's
Yeah.
the reason I come here every month.
Yes.
And maybe we could show the federal government how you could do summative, not every year, but maybe third grade, sixth grade. We know third grade's the reading, sixth grade's our math year, right? We know we have to have, so maybe we could be the innovators in that piece as well, right?
And I know they looked at it because then they shared it with us. But I mean, I love the idea of having the throughout the year test that equates to a summative score. Because I do think we need to know where we are. But the value as far as to a teacher is that throughout the year test that I get immediate what my kiddos can't do and how can I help them fix that, as opposed to fast reference and autopsy. It's difficult when you get something in May and those kids are moving on. And
Yeah.
not
I tell you, this has been very helpful. We've covered about 5 or 6 major major action opportunity. Put on your hard hat, Byron. Put on your construction hat. Somebody get a picture of this. It's no doubt we are really all seeking to try to make it better because we have to. And BJ is taking a picture right now. And so yeah, we have quite a bit of work ahead. We'll look at the language administrative statute. We will timeline something out, thinking through this, and be back in touch on that. So thank you. I think that the Indiana GPS, of which we're going to see shortly, is also, I mean, board members have seen it somewhat. This is iteration 1. Even that, we're going to continue improving upon. So any other member comments? I'm looking at Greg because I did not call him out in the JA this morning. He was sitting here at a table with board members, and I forgot to say Greg's name. So I just need to say Greg's name now. Greg Gastineau. He came up to me after. All right. On that note, let's go on and to the next item. Is there a motion to approve? Oh, actually, we have public comment, and we have 2 today. Kendra Johnson.
Good morning to each and every one of you.
Good morning.
When I found out that the state board meeting was going to be here today, the first thing that popped into my head was, what? The second thing was an organization called the 4-H Club, an organization that I knew would educate individuals, young people, about raising, the word I'm looking for escapes me at the moment, but would teach them about farming, about growing, something that many urban children don't know too much about, but something that my ancestors and other of my culture knew about, farming. Agriculture, I think, is the word I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. Also, when I heard you mention about JA, I remember JA when I was attending Andrew Ann High School. Unfortunately, I was not able to participate in JA, and I wish I had, because I had an interest in business. I had an interest, which I didn't know at that time, of having my own business. And JA can be a vehicle for that. Unfortunately, a lot of other corporations and a lot of parents and students don't know about JA. So that's something that we also need to get out to them. And as I listen to all of you talking about what needs to be done in this state, and watching that hard hat get put on the construction hat, the other thing I realize is it's not just construction. We've got to roll up our sleeves and get our hands proverbially dirty. We have to make partnerships and work with people, because these children are our future, and they're counting on you and their educators and their parents to help show them the right way to guide them. I always would ask children 3 things. What would you like to do when you finish school or when you grow up? They give me an idea. Then I said, what is your second choice? And they would kind of look at me. And I said, because sometimes life happens and what you originally wanted to do, for some reason, you don't end up doing. So have a second choice and possibly even a third choice. Well, how do you do that? I always tell parents, look at what your children's talents are. Look at what they love to do, because if they love to do something, they'll continue to do it. If they have a talent, it needs to be nurtured. It needs to be encouraged. I don't have a degree in education, but I have 25 years of being a parent in the Gary School Corporation consistently. And I also raised 6 children for over 21 years. My oldest is 37. So I can say I was a parent of 1 child for 37 years. But with each of them, I tried to find what their talents were and worked with their educators to help nourish it, to help flourish it. And when I get a chance one day, I'd love to sit down and tell you the stories of what all 6 of my children are doing now. 3 of them have degrees, 3 of them don't. But I'd love to show you and tell you how they have done what they could and how they're now trying to encourage their children for a better future, as well as the children that are around their children. Thank you.
Thank you. John O'Neill.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Jenner and board members. John O'Neill with the Indiana State Teachers Association. And I just wanted to take a brief opportunity today to highlight the RISE Award, which you probably heard about. It's the Recognizing Inspiring School Employees Award. And it honors ESPs who provide exemplary service to students. And it's been around, to my knowledge, for several years. And the governor's and secretary's office can nominate candidates to receive this recognition for ESPs who have a strong commitment to our Hoosier kids. And I just wanted to bring this up because ESP staff are an integral part of our public school community, and each one of them provides a valuable service to the overall delivery of educational programming in our state and are considered part of the school community. And as you all know, we frequently hear about the teacher shortage, and ISTA and many other stakeholders have been working on that for quite some time and continue to do so. But sometimes ESP are kind of on the back burner or forgotten that there's also a shortage among ESP staff as well. And ISTA considers these employees educators in their own right. They interact with students daily in unique ways. They encourage students, help them grow, recognize their individual gifts. And they get to cover a lot of things that happen outside of the classroom, soft skills that we hear and talk about often, values like kindness and civility, patience, generosity. ESPs foster all of these skills. And so, you know, we just wanted to highlight that. I know that I'm not sure who, but I know Gail is meeting with someone from the department this week to talk about it. And so I just wanted to bring it up today that, you know, we are continuing to work on ESP issues legislatively, and we believe this award is a good thing to highlight. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
The motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So shifting on to a discussion about Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed dashboard. We've kind of teed up some of the discussion, and I'm sure it will continue. So Jason Callahan is here, Assistant Secretary of Pathways and Opportunities, to provide an update. And board members, I believe it's all going to be on this presentation screen if you need to turn around.
Thank you, Dr. Jenner. Thank you, state board members. Really appreciate all your support of the work that our team has underwent over. It's amazing to think it's not even been a year since this board affirmed the 5 characteristics of the Indiana GPS. But again, thank you for all the support and the robust engagement and conversation before, as you said, Dr. Jenner, teeing this presentation up. I'd also like to thank some teammates who are not here, Ron Sandlin and Brenda Earps, who really have done a lot of the efforts. And if you remember, again, we have the characteristics, then we affirmed the indicators, and what we have been doing and what we're updating today is really those benchmark indicators and the design and the business rules around these indicators. So a lot of effort has gone into this presentation today and where we're at with the dashboard. So going to provide that overview. Like I mentioned, benchmark indicators, and if you remember, there's 17 indicators, and we differentiated between these headline indicators and these informational indicators. And so we're going to talk briefly about the benchmark indicators and where we're at with that, and then really that demonstration of the web application and really that first public introduction of the GPS dashboard, and then our next steps. Very important, as we always present, we love to lead with these guiding principles because these principles went into the design, went into the thoughts behind so much of this, but really designing something that is learner-centered, future-focused, that prioritizes, and I heard it in the early conversation, student growth. Prioritize individual student growth and development, creating access. And this morning's JA presentation was about access to all in these career pathways and really that lead to employment, enrollment, or enlistment leading to service. And then the necessary strategic partnerships that must be in place for us to achieve this for all Hoosier children. And then a transparent and nimble dashboard that really still captures the complexity of that whole child experience. This is important, and we talked throughout about having that 10-second view and being able to capture how well we're doing, but also being able to have a system that can capture that complexity. Going back, House Bill 1514 charged us with building out this dashboard, and as we started thinking about indicators, we quickly, again, to that earlier conversation, thought about what is the North Star in identifying characteristics that would lead this conversation. And so throughout this entire process, we have been charged with engaging with stakeholders across the state and beyond to really look at how do we define those characteristics that we want for every Hoosier child. And we landed on these 5 characteristics, which were affirmed last October: that academic mastery, career and post-secondary readiness, specifically those credentials and high-quality work-based learning experiences, skills of communication, collaboration, work ethic, and then civic, financial, and digital literacy. Once we had those characteristics, then we identified the indicators, and those were affirmed in December. We wanted to be able to show those and also highlight, as we were building out the business rules, and how do we get this data? You know, that is so important. And as we talk to stakeholders, one of the things that became abundantly clear is that we did not want to saddle school counselors or school systems with that additional burden of retrieving that data. And so these are the agencies we'll be retrieving that data from. Again, the goal will be to get that from the state MPH, if at all possible, but these are the agencies that have that data. And as I said, this has been a collective process across the state of Indiana, engaging all stakeholders in this work. And I might also mention too, as we have this conversation, thinking through some of these tactics that we've deployed, like 3E and the Employability Skill Innovation and Implementation Grant, really trying to best understand how do we embed, how do we assess, how do we show it on a dashboard, things like communication, collaboration, work ethic, what is high-quality work-based learning, and so still working through the research of that and through those grants. So this is our early fall update. Again, we talked about the complexity of a dashboard that would report on all 17 of these indicators, and yet at the same time being able to clearly articulate that transparency. And so we have several features of the dashboard. We're going to talk about this data narrative or this data story. And so as we were listening to stakeholders give us that feedback, like what does the data tell us? We learned about a style from, actually Apple uses it, and it's called scrolly telling feature, where instead of just having their product in the price, they're gonna tell the story of what this product is really about. And so we enlisted this style, this function, to really begin telling our data story for the state of Indiana and why each indicator matters. Then it's going to go to that statewide infographic page that will display those statistics and bring all that you learned in that scrolly telling feature together. And then finally, we'll have our corporation and school landing pages where eventually you'll be able to drill down into the data as well. Themes in that stakeholder feedback, again, telling that data story, emphasizing the why. Again, not random acts of indicators, but why are these indicators important for future student success? Setting North Stars, goals, targets that we as a state can go after. Using gauges or arrows that we can easily understand, trending. And then, again, what we've heard on repeat from everyone is that how do we tell a longitudinal and then also dive into the student populations? So making sure that's part of this, and then the demographic and achievement data on the same page. I think at this time, we're going to jump right into the data scrolly telling. Again, this is not to insult anyone's intelligence on either the board or our viewers, but I'm going to take this opportunity to really read this to clearly articulate that data narrative or that data story. Kurt, can we go back? Is it?
And I would also note, you'll see at the top right, it'll come up, if a person has seen this once, or if they just want to get straight to the data, they can click it and go straight to the data. But this does set up the story for other new users or other users who want to know more.
So as we scroll through this, you're going to see a rising sun. Also notice the logo. It's a geomark with a path to a rising sun, indicating success, that we're going somewhere to a pathway of success.
Are you able to read that far?
I
feel like this is an eye test.
I know. Thanks to...
If you need to pull the mic, you probably can.
I think I can.
Okay.
Welcome to Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed. We know that students are more than a single test score. In addition to academic mastery, Indiana GPS will elevate a number of key characteristics essential to preparing Indiana students for their futures, whether they choose employment, enrollment, or enlistment leading to service. Again, right there at the beginning, it tells exactly what we're doing. What defines the Indiana graduate prepared to succeed? As we work to blur the lines between pre-K, 12, higher education, and the workforce, we set out to identify the knowledge and skills every student should have by high school graduation. Extensive feedback from educators, families, communities, and employers consistently told us the following characteristics truly matter. List our 5 characteristics. And when it comes to equipping students with these key characteristics, every grade level counts, from early learning through graduation and beyond. We've parceled the time. Again, we want to tell this comprehensive data story. And so we've chunked it or put blocks of time, pre-K to grade 2. Idea here is expanding quality, affordable, and accessible early learning. Transitions to grade 3-8, delivering educational fundamentals, emphasis on reading and STEM. Grades 9-12, providing seamless transitions for Indiana students. And then post-secondary, supporting Indiana students for a brighter future. As the global economy changes and technology advances, we must work together to ensure each and every student develops knowledge and skills throughout the K-12 years and forges connection to college and career pathways so they are prepared for life beyond high school. Those blocks, those chunks of time will also be layered in the ongoing layout of this information. Using those questions as a way to anchor or signal, for the reader, the viewer, Pre-K, grade 2, where do we start? Again, going back to that first block, expanding quality, affordable, and accessible early learning opportunities. A student's access to early education is an essential first step in their academic and overall development. Measuring kindergarten readiness as well as a student's early literacy skills can provide a key foundational indicator of future success across the K-12 continuum. So again, we're signaling what are these headline indicators, what are these benchmark indicators, and then the why. And so this begins to tell that why story. Students who participate in Indiana's On My Way pre-K program perform better on general school readiness skills, including language and literacy skills in kindergarten. And if you look, we include sources of the report down below that came out of Purdue University. We have not established the business rules around that indicator yet. Once we do, after the why, we will have data that follows that. So where are we as a state? Grades 3 through 8, what are the essential building blocks? Delivering educational fundamentals, emphasis on reading and STEM. Knowledge and skill development continues in elementary and middle school as students build literacy and math skills, which lay the foundation for future learning and problem solving. This is also a time for students to begin exploring and engaging with career opportunities, illuminating the range of possibilities available to them, and lighting that fire of purpose in our students. Why is this important? Students who pass the iRead assessments by grade 3 are roughly 35% more likely to graduate high school. Juxtapose the why with where are we? 1 out of every 5 third graders in Indiana is not proficient in key literacy skills. Grade 6 mathematics marks the transition of students' work with foundational concrete concepts to more sophisticated ideas grounded in algebra and abstract reasoning. Proficiency at the end of grade 6 provides students with the foundation required to support growth in future mathematics and science learning opportunities, making this a critical juncture for decision points regarding acceleration. Obviously, we're going to capture iLearn scores for every grade in the dashboard, but elevating that 6th grade math growth, we wanted to be able to tell the why. Why that? And then where are we? 33% of Indiana's 6th graders are meeting their math goals. Grades 9, 12, how do we rethink high school? With graduation pathways, students are able to individualize their graduation requirements to align their post-secondary goal of employment, enrollment, or enlistment leading to service. Beginning with the graduating class of 2023, Indiana high school students must satisfy all 3 of the following graduation requirements. Earn credits necessary for a high school diploma, and we list the diplomas. Learn and demonstrate employability skills, project-based, service-based, and work-based learning, and then demonstrate post-secondary ready competencies. 9 total options, including our locally created pathways. This is the 2021 graduation rate. Again, since that new policy of grad pathways will be taking the place of the grad rate, this is our beginning data point. Providing seamless transitions for our students. Our work continues through high school, where in partnership with higher education and employers, we are expanding access to intentional college credit opportunities that allow students to earn transferable, stackable credentials before graduation, as well as high-quality work-based learning experiences. Again, setting off those key things. Increased education levels are positively correlated to labor participation, wages, and overall net worth. And where are we? Today, 64% of high school students earn college credit, placing them 1 step closer to completing a credential beyond a high school diploma. Over 7% of these students earn a college or career credential before graduation, opening doors for future opportunity. This graphic, again, we wanted to be able to illustrate this data point, to be able to say, there on the far right illustrates the over 7% that are earning the credential, but right behind the door, if we open that, if we open the circle, as the speaker said earlier today, we can get more of those students across that door frame. We can get them through into the next room, earning those credentials. Graduation and beyond, what comes next? Supporting students for a brighter future. We know that education positively impacts a person's quality of life, health, employment, and living wage. The future of our students, our communities, and our state depend on a K-12 system that helps everyone succeed, whether their post-graduation plans include employment, enrollment, or enlistment leading to service. We measure the long-term success of each Hoosier by examining indicators such as median income and sustained employment. These real-life success stories inform the improvement of Indiana's education continuum for the next generation of students. Why is this important? 99% of new jobs created since the Great Recession go to Americans with some education beyond high school. And over the course of a lifetime, Hoosiers with education beyond high school are likely to earn $1 million more than those with only a high school diploma. So again, this is that data scrolling telling story. As Dr. Jenner said, the user can opt out of that. You've been through it. We laughed yesterday. I'm guessing after maybe 10 times of going to your data, you may want to just skip that. And this will be the landing page for the state. And so it brings it all together. And so where are we and where are we going? And these are the benchmark goals. We designed this in a way because some goals may be closer to than others. And so we know, right, and we have not established all these to date. We know that third grade literacy, we have a statewide goal of 95% by 2027. But again, and you also notice in the employment and enrollment, it doesn't have enlistment to serve. And we as other states are continuing to work with Department of Defense and others to try to be able to be able to get that data. But again, we will, as we continue with business rules and research, to help inform where do we set these benchmark indicators. But these are set off from the other informational indicators.
Can you go back to that slide, please? We got a lot of focus group feedback on education, just typically uses a lot of charts, which is not accessible. So scroll back up, please. So at the very top where it says, where are we now? Where is Indiana today? Each of those tabs will either be like a link where you click on the tab, or there will be a hyperlink where you can get straight to the longitudinal data and student population data of literacy, where you can get to the college and career credential data, where you can get to the math proficiency and growth data across the board. So those will all be hyperlinked so you can get into a deeper level of data. Now I think we're ready to flip over to the next one.
So we'll go to that district level page. And so you'll see we have, again, I talked earlier about the layering of those blocks of time, that pre-K to grade 2. So again, it's layered, it's thematic. You have the benchmarked headline indicators here at the beginning with the gauges. You have the district, the state, and then you have the trend arrows. Either we're trending up or we're trending down. And then as you look down below, again, this is back to that 10-second, like, how are we doing, but still being able to it's right there with one click to open up the accordion view style. So again, third grade literacy is opened up, but we can close that. So every informational indicator on there is displayed, and then you click on it. And as I said earlier, the feedback we heard was we want longitudinal and that student population data displayed. And so with one click, you have access to that from the district page.
couple of other things to point out on this page. If you scroll all the way to the top, again, this was on the feedback. We heard repeatedly right now with our views, you have to click multiple times to see demographics here, achievement here, graduation here. So it was requested, can we just put all of it on one so that we can just scan through it? We didn't know if that would be possible because that's a lot of information on one page, but our developers have done a great job, we believe, in the demographic data at the top, goal areas, accordion style headline indicators. There's also, you see on the side, the goal, if it's a state goal. One thing we have not talked about as a board, but is there future, we did get feedback yesterday from some principals who suggested that we consider how the SIP, the school improvement plan, could evolve and be more technology friendly and maybe connect to this. So again, a lot of iteration options. And finally, that explore button there will go to a Power BI database, which is significantly more information for those who want to dig deeper.
And then it drops down to that building level. And again, as you see, this is Springfield Elementary and Middle School. It does not have the high school or the longitudinal indicators on there. But again, the layering of pre-K, grade 2, 3, 8. And then our other headline indicators. We also heard that in our current view, it's just the data. And so being able to contextualize that both with that longitudinal as well as population data for iLearn, and then it's arranged with that above at approaching or below proficiency. Next steps. So again, we will continue to collaborate with stakeholders as we've done throughout to get that necessary data. We've highlighted a few of those areas, had a conversation with Byron a little bit ago about like the college and career credentials and how do we ensure that we've, really make sure all schools are playing by the same rules, understand what are those credentials, and that they carry currency as well. And so working through some of that research and other state agencies and people in the field, and then developing those tools and resources, so toolkits. What's that experience like for stakeholders as they engage with the dashboard? Building that out to help support. And then we will, like we do everything that's new, we'll embargo and have an opportunity for schools to go through the authenticated platform to be able to look at the dashboard of their school systems. Thank you.
So that's our early fall update. Would be glad to take any questions, comments, thoughts on what we shared. And by the way, for the media, the public press release will link to Jason's voiceover so that the scrolly telling is easy to access in the other data pages. Or I can take a motion to adjourn, either way.
I can make a quick comment.
Sure, Erica.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the push for making sure that we are all looking at that same, the same end goal, which is making sure our students are successful, with their post-secondary goals, and looking at the push for our students to earn those college credits and the credentials is just huge. I've seen great success with the schools that I've been working with, and to see students have access to that maybe would have never had access to going to college or to have the transportation to go earn those college credits or to earn those post-secondary credentials and the career certifications has been huge to see. I was not so fond of it when I first encountered this initiative because I felt like, let's get them through high school, right? But then I saw the benefits that so many students and families received when schools opened up that door of opportunity and allowed students to walk in. Just with our schools alone, I've seen over 50 students since 2013 receive associate's degree, one receive a bachelor's degree at the same time that she received her high school diploma, but hundreds receiving those credentials, those certifications. So I'm so excited to see that the state is moving in this direction because it has huge benefits.
Thank you for your thoughts, Erica. Any additional? Yes, Scott.
Yeah, again, carry a theme I've talked about multiple times. I know in one of the meetings we had when we were first talking about this, we really emphasized, I appreciate the transparency when you do the drop down at a school level data to be able to see the trend lines and to see the subgroup pieces of that. I think getting that transparency out there, because too often that just gets hidden or averaged, and I think making it explicit so that parents can see what their child might experience at that school. I think I think it really opens that up for parents. I think it opens up for policymakers and certainly great information for people running schools to go, oh, that's where we are, and it's right there and it's available. I think the developers did a really nice job of walking that line between flooding with too much information, but presenting it in a way that's really easy to see that growth, to see the subgroups, and then to see, are you trending up or trending down? I think that was artfully done.
Thanks for that feedback.
Can
Byron.
Can I just say thank you because you all know I was like a broken record on their trajectory. Love to even use the word in there, but I just think those trajectories are crucial to see where we are. And then I think play into, to bring it full circle and put a bow on it to what Pat said with where we think about accountability. I think that's an important piece to that too, right? Are we trending up? Are we just flatlined, or are we going the wrong direction? And so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Please don't take those out.
Okay, thank you. We got a lot of other positive feedback, so I think those are staying in, trajectory arrows. Anyone else? BJ.
I'd say just to thank you again. Teachers have begged for decades to have more data points painting a picture of what's going on in their building, and that's what this does. By no means are we ever going to get it perfect, but this is a lot better than anything that we've ever had. So I know that they appreciate that, and the work they get. It's hard work. That's why it's been so difficult to get done. But no, the amount of data points you have in that to paint a picture of everything and every student that's being served by that district that's pretty awesome. So, job well done.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the board and the department, we listened to a lot of people, a lot of different people out there who told us the indicators and research that pointed straight to indicators. So thank you, BJ. Any other comments? Okay.
Just wanted to add that I agree with everyone else. It is so user-friendly, just having access to all those data points right at our fingertips, the fingertips, like Scott mentioned, of our parents and families, just for them to be able to access that data in that user-friendly way and really just taking our suggestions and running with them. I'm just so thankful. You guys have done an amazing job.
Thank you, Erica. BJ.
Sorry, I do have one more thing. I would love to see us, and I have no idea how this would work, but I would love to see us work to link the Learning Lab to this. So if there's an area that your school is struggling in third grade math, how can we link that to those third grade master lessons that are posted in Learning Lab so either teachers or mom or dad can go in and click on that and say, oh, here's a great lesson on what my school's struggling with. Don't know if it's possible, wish list, but we have two huge, great machines. I would love to see if we could link them together.
Absolutely. We shared that idea for her when you mentioned it. I'm glad you said it publicly, because I think that would be a great link. What we've shared, this is iteration 1. We already have several iterations that, I mean, the build, we don't see an end build time period. I mean, it's going to continue to build. So as you have additional ideas, insights, as you hear others who do, we are all ears to listen, and see what we can do to just make it better.
Dr. Jenner, just a reflection, having been through, I think, at least 2 iterations of this sort of work as a board member, wanted to note what feels very different about this moment in comparison to others. I've heard a lot of user, customer, product language, and empathy feels like it is the core of what we're trying to do. That feels really different, and that the success of what we're seeing seems really driven by this empathy-centered framework and blueprint focus, that we want to create frameworks and blueprints for those who are closest to the work to successfully use them and know where they're going and customize their pathway. And so I just want to compliment you, your team, the board, for this really different feeling and approach, and also just encourage us to continue to do that as we start in trickier, knottier areas of accountability and diploma, where there are other perspectives that we will have to grapple with. But at the end, this needs to be a teacher and a student educator-centric product that we're building for these outcomes. So anyway, just congratulations to you and the team for that.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion accepted. We're adjourned.